right, we've got another story. Are you guys ready for more? Are you all ready for more? Is everybody awake? Okay, so the next one is another Obama household favorite. It's called Horton Hatches the Egg. All right, we thought this would be a good one because of what? What are we doing here? Right, so we figured let's talk about some eggs. Are we ready? Okay, here we go. This is one of my favorites. Sighed Maisie, a lazy bird hatching an egg. I'm tired and I'm bored and I've kinks in my legs from just sitting here day after day. It's work, how I hate it. I'd much rather play. I'd take a vacation. I'd fly away free. If I could find someone, I'd take a rest. If I could find someone to stay on my nest. If I could find someone, I'd fly away free. Then Horton the elephant passed by her tree. Hello, called the lazy bird, smiling her best. You've nothing to do, and I do need a rest. Would you like to sit on the egg in my nest? The elephant laughed. Why, of all silly things, I haven't feathers and I haven't wings. Me on your egg? Why, that doesn't make sense. Your egg is so small, ma'am, and I'm so immense. Tut, tut, answered Maisie. I know you're not small, but I know you can do it. No trouble at all. Just sit on it softly. You're gentle and kind. Come, be a good fellow. I know you won't mind. I can't, said the elephant. Please, begged the bird. I won't be gone long, sir. I give you my word. I'll hurry right back, and I'll never be missed. Very well, said the elephant, since you insist. You want a vacation? Go fly off and take it. I'll sit on your egg and I'll try not to break it. I'll stay and be faithful. I mean what I say. Toodaloo, said the bird, and she fluttered away. So she left the elephant to look after her egg. Was that nice of him? Yeah. That was nice of the elephant. The first thing to do, murmured Horton. Let's see. The first thing to do is to prop up this tree and make it much stronger. That has to be done. Before I get on it, I must weigh a ton. So he propped up the egg so that he could sit on it without doing what? Without cracking it. Then carefully, tenderly, gently he crept up the trunk to the nest where the little egg slept. Then Horton the elephant smiled. Now that's that. And he sat, and he sat, and he sat, and he sat. And he sat all that day, and he kept the egg warm. He sat all that night through a terrible storm. It poured, and it lightened. It thundered and rumbled. This isn't much fun, the poor elephant grumbled. I wish he'd come back, 'cause I'm cold and I'm wet. I hope that Maisie bird doesn't forget. Look, he's all by himself, and the bird is gone. She left him sitting on her egg. But you know what Maisie was doing? But Maisie by this time was far beyond reach, enjoying the sunshine way off in Palm Beach. Having such fun, such a wonderful rest, decided she'd never go back to her nest. She's just gonna leave Horton there. It's her egg. She's just being lazy. So Horton kept sitting there day after day, and soon it was autumn. The leaves blew away. And then came the winter, the snow and the sleet, and icicles hung from his trunk and his feet. But Horton kept sitting and said with a sneeze, I'll stay on this egg and I won't let it freeze. I meant what I said and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%. So he is sitting in the ice. Maisie's all off in Palm Beach. So poor Horton sat there the whole winter through. And then came the springtime with troubles anew. His friends gathered round and they shouted with glee, look, Horton the elephant's up in a tree. They taunted, they teased him, they yelled, how absurd. Oh, Horton the elephant thinks he's a bird. So now his friends are laughing at him. They laughed and they laughed. Then they all ran away, and Horton was lonely. He wanted to play, but he sat on the egg and continued to say, I meant what I said, and I said what I meant. Elephant's faithful 100%. So Horton's going to keep his word, even though Maisie the lazy bird is where? Just left the egg. No matter what happens, this egg must be tended. But poor Horton's troubles were far, far from ended. For while Horton sat there so faithful, so kind, 3 hunters came sneaking up from behind. Now he might get shot. He heard the men's footsteps. He turned with the start. 3 rifles were aiming right straight for his heart. Did he run? He did not. Horton stayed on that nest. He held his head high and he threw out his chest and he looked at the hunters as much as to say, shoot if you must, but I won't run away. I meant what I said and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%. So he didn't even move when it meant his life was in danger. But the men didn't shoot, much to Horton's surprise. They dropped their 3 guns and they stared with wide eyes. Look, they all shouted, can such a thing be? An elephant sitting on top of a tree? It's strange, it's amazing, it's wonderful, new. Don't shoot him, we'll catch him. That's just what we'll do. Let's take him alive. Why, he's terribly funny. We'll sell him back home to a circus for money. They're gonna take him from his home. And the first thing he knew, they had built a big wagon with ropes on the front for the pullers to drag on. They dug up his tree and they put it inside, with Horton so sad that he practically cried. We're off, the men shouted, and off they all went, with Horton unhappy 100%. Up out of the jungle, up into the sky, up over the mountain 10,000 feet high, then down the mountains and down to the sea went the cart with the elephant, egg, nest, and tree. They're taking him away from his home. What do you think's gonna happen? I don't know. Then out of the wagon and onto a ship and over the ocean, and ooh, what a trip. The rolling, the tossing, and splash with the spray. And Horton said day after day after day, I meant what I said and I said what I meant. An elephant's faithful 100%. He's gonna stick to it, even though this is really tough. After bobbing around for 2 weeks like a cork, they landed at last in the town of New York. All ashore, the men shouted, and down with a lurch went the Horton, the elephant, still on its perch, tied onto a board that could just scarcely hold him. Bump, Horton landed, and then the men sold him. Oh, and then sold to the circus. Then week after week, they showed him to people at 10 cents a peek. They took him to Boston, to Kalamazoo, Chicago, Weehawken, and Washington too, to Dayton, Ohio, to St. Paul, Minnesota, to Wichita, Kansas, to Drake, North Dakota, and everywhere thousands of folks flocked to see an elephant and laugh at an elephant up in a tree. And poor Horton grew sadder the farther he went, but he said as he sat in the hot, noisy tent, an elephant, I meant what I said and I said what I meant, an elephant's faithful 100%. Then one day, the circus show happened to reach a town way down south, not so far from Palm Beach. And dawdling along way up in the sky, who of all people should happen to fly by but that old good-for-nothing bird, Runaway Maisie, still on vacation and still just as lazy, and spying the flags in the tents just below, she sang out, "Oh, what fun! Well, I'll go to a show." And she swooped from the clouds through an open tent door. "Good gracious," gasped Maisie, "I've seen you before." Poor Horton looked up with his face white as chalk. He started to speak, but before he could talk, there rang out the noisiest ear-spitting squeaks from the egg that he'd sat on for 51 weeks. A thumping, a bumping, a wild, alive scratching. "My egg!" shouted Horton. "My egg! Why, it's hatching!" So what do you think Maisie's gonna do? Maisie said, "But it's my egg!" screamed the bird when she heard the egg crack. The work was all done, so she wanted it back. It's my egg, she sputtered. You stole it from me. Get off of my nest and get out of my tree. And poor Horton backed down with a sad, heavy heart. But at that very instant, the egg burst apart, and out of the pieces of red and white shell from the egg that he'd sat on so long and so well, Horton the elephant saw something whiz. It had ears and a tail and a trunk, just like his. Look what all that work did. And the people came shouting, "What's all this about?" They looked and they stared with their eyes popping out. Then they cheered and they cheered and they cheered more and more. They'd never seen anything like it before. My goodness, my gracious, they shouted, my word, it's something brand new. It's an elephant bird. And it should be like that, because Horton was faithful. He sat and he sat. He meant what he said and he said what he meant. And they sent him home happy, 100%. The end. All right, what's the moral of that story? What's the moral? A what? A river? Okay, that's the moral. It's a good river. What do you think? That's right. You should be nice to your friends and keep your word. And if you say you're going to do something, you do it, right? All right.